Kale sat alone on the observation deck of the starport, his fingers tapping lightly on the metal railing. Outside, the lights of distant ships glimmered like stars trapped in glass. He had been here hundreds of times, repairing vessels, plotting courses, and saving crews with nothing but his skills and sharp mind. Yet, no matter how many lives he saved or how far he traveled, Kale carried a loneliness heavier than any cargo he had ever lifted. Women tried to reach him often, drawn by tales of his daring feats and his quiet, confident demeanor. They came with smiles, laughter, and soft words, hoping he would accept them. But Kale had a rule. He rejected every woman. Not out of arrogance, he told himself, but because he could not forget her, the one he had lost years ago. Her face haunted him in the quiet moments between missions, and no new presence could ever replace that memory. He stared at a freighter docking across the bay. Its hull was scratched, scorched even, like it had survived a battle it should not have. Something about it pulled Kale's attention, a sense of unease that made the hair on his arms stand on end. He didn't usually notice ships this way. He was too focused on engineering, on calculations, on survival. But this ship felt different, almost alive. A voice called from the dock below, soft yet commanding. "Is anyone here skilled enough to repair a ship that has seen death and fire?" Kale frowned. Most callers were desperate, overestimating the damage to gain quick help. He considered ignoring it, but curiosity pricked him. Something in that voice was sharp, measured, like someone used to survival and loss. He descended to the dock, his boots clanging against metal. There, standing before the battered freighter, was a woman unlike any he had ever seen. Her hair shimmered like molten silver under the starport lights, and her eyes were deep, golden, and fierce. Around her shoulders, a cloak that shimmered with scales hinted at something more, something beyond human. "I'm Kale," he said cautiously. "You need a mechanic?" She studied him, her gaze both assessing and calm. "I need someone who understands more than metal. I need someone who can fix what is broken without asking too many questions." Her voice was soft but carried a weight that made Kale straighten. "I am Lysra. My home no longer exists. I have nowhere to go." Kale's chest tightened, though he did not show it. She was beautiful, yes, but there was more. A story of survival, of loss, perhaps worse than his own. Most people begged for shelter or food. Lysra asked for understanding, and that was a different challenge entirely. He studied the freighter. Burn marks, hull breaches, and internal damage from what looked like an energy blast. It was going to take days to fix, and Kale usually worked alone. His reputation had been built on doing impossible tasks without partners. Yet for some reason he felt a pull to this mission. "Why me?" he asked. "There are plenty of engineers around." Lysra's eyes did not waver. "Because you do not ask for payment in words or promises. You act. You repair. You survive. That is what I need." Kale hesitated. He was used to refusing women, but she was not asking to be charmed or saved in the usual sense. She was asking for partnership in a strange and silent way. Something about her confidence, her grief, and her hidden strength made him curious and cautious. "Fine," he said at last, his voice firm but quiet. "I will help. But I work alone and I don't take company well." Lysra nodded once. "I do not intend to disturb your solitude. I only ask for shelter while the repairs are done." They walked toward the ship, Kale's eyes scanning the damage with professional precision. Lysra followed silently, but he could feel her attention on him, not intrusive but aware. There was a tension in the air, something unspoken, a connection forming between two survivors who had lost more than most could imagine. Inside, the freighter was worse than Kale expected. Panels were twisted, wiring scorched, and a strange residue covered parts of the engine. Lysra pointed to the source. "The attack, it was not random. Someone wanted to erase everything I had." Kale's jaw tightened. He hated threats, hated weakness. Yet here, weakness and danger were wrapped together, and Lysra carried them both with calm dignity. "I will need to check the reactor core first," he said. "Then the hull, then the navigation systems. This will take time." She nodded again, and for a moment the silence was comfortable. Kale worked with his usual efficiency, and Lysra observed, occasionally asking about tools or parts with a precision that suggested she had been trained in StarCraft before. Her knowledge was unusual, and Kale recognized that she was no ordinary passenger. Hours passed. The freighter groaned as Kale repaired panels, rewired circuits, and replaced engines. Outside, the stars rotated, indifferent to the lives below. Lysra remained a quiet presence, her golden eyes watching, occasionally offering a word or insight. Each time she spoke, Kale noticed the care in her tone. Not pity. Not fear. Respect. As he worked, Cale's mind wandered, as it always did when he was repairing ships alone. Yet, Lysra's presence made it different. She did not fill the space with chatter or trivial conversation. She only existed alongside him, a companion in silence and survival. And for the first time in many years, Cale felt the stirrings of something dangerous, an opening in the walls he had built around his heart. Night fell over the starport, though it was more a cycle of lights than true darkness. The freighter's systems flickered back to life, one by one, each hum and beep signaling a small victory. Lysra stepped closer, inspecting a repaired panel. "You are thorough," she said simply, "and cautious, like someone who has seen too much and trusts too little." Cale allowed a small smile, a rare crack in his stoic armor. "Perhaps. But someone has to survive out here. And sometimes that means trusting a little, even if it is dangerous." Lysra's eyes softened for the first time. She did not speak, but her expression said more than words could. There was history here, danger, grief, but also a spark. Cale did not yet know whether it was friendship, respect, or something else entirely. He only knew one thing: Lysra was different. And he had been alone for far too long. Cale watched Lysra move through the freighter with quiet confidence. She inspected every corner, touched panels lightly, and occasionally hummed in a way that sounded almost like a song from another world. Cale had repaired many ships and met many passengers, but something about her felt different. It was not just her golden eyes or the scales on her cloak. It was the weight she carried, the kind of loss that left a mark on the soul. Finally she turned to him, her expression serious. "Cale, you need to understand why I am here." Her voice was soft but firm, leaving no room for excuses or lies. Cale leaned against the railing of the cockpit. "I know your ship is damaged. I know you are asking for shelter. But I don't know why anyone would risk coming to me with more than repairs." Lysra's eyes flickered with a hint of sorrow. "Because I have lost everything. My mate, he was killed. We were attacked while traveling between worlds. The ones responsible wanted to erase our existence." She paused, letting the words sink in. "I do not ask for comfort or companionship, Cale. I ask for a home. A place where I can survive." Cale's chest tightened. He knew grief. He knew loss. Yet he had spent years avoiding it, building walls so high that no one could reach him. Now Lysra was standing before him, carrying her own pain and asking him to help, not as a lover, not as a friend, but as someone who could see her struggle and act. "Why not go to the authorities? Or a colony? There are places for survivors," Cale asked, trying to keep his voice even. Lysra shook her head. "The galaxy is not safe for someone like me. My kind, my bloodline, we are hunted. My mate's death was proof. I cannot stay in populated systems without drawing attention. If I hide in a colony, I will be found, and I do not want to risk bringing danger to anyone else." Cale noticed the subtle shimmer under her cloak. Scales, faint and glinting under the lights, not just decoration but part of her very being. He had heard of dragons, rare beings who could live among humans yet carry power few could match. She was one of them, and that alone made her dangerous, but also vulnerable in ways most humans could not imagine. "You are saying you need me, to hide you?" Cale asked, trying to mask the unease in his voice. "Yes," Lysra said simply. "Not for companionship. Not for love. For survival. A home. That is all I ask. And I know it is a lot to ask of a stranger." Cale's mind raced. He had turned away countless women before, not because he was cruel, but because he feared losing himself again. To take someone in, even for safety, meant opening a door he had closed long ago. Yet, something in Lysra's eyes, in the way she carried herself, made him pause. She was not helpless. She did not beg. She only asked for a chance to exist. "I work alone," Cale said finally, his voice low. "I'm not good with guests. I have responsibilities. My life is complicated." Lysra's lips curved slightly, almost a smile. "I do not intend to be a guest. I will not interfere. I only need space to live and repair what remains of my ship. You are the only one I can trust with that." Cale glanced at the freighter again. The damage was extensive, but nothing he could not fix. His hands itched to work, to solve problems, to make something whole again. He realized that helping her might not only save her life but also give him a purpose beyond himself, a reason to step beyond the walls he had built. "And the danger?" Cale asked cautiously. "If your people are hunted, if you have enemies, they could find me too." Lysra's gaze sharpened. "Yes, they could. But you are strong, Cale. I can sense it. You survive where others fail. You act when others hesitate. You may not see it, but you have the strength to protect not just yourself but someone else." Kale frowned. She did not flatter him. She did not offer empty praise. She observed, assessed, and stated a truth he had never admitted to himself. He had power, skill, and courage, but he had no one to share it with. He had survived, yes, but alone. And for the first time he wondered if survival alone was enough. "You are asking for more than a mechanic," Kale said quietly. "You are asking me to take responsibility for a life that is not mine." Lysra nodded. "I am asking for help. Nothing more. I do not expect friendship or loyalty beyond survival. I do not ask for love." Kale exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of the decision pressing on him. He had been alone for years by choice. He had avoided connection, avoided risk, avoided loss. But now the opportunity to protect someone who truly needed him was here. He could say no and continue his solitary life, or he could step forward and face something unfamiliar. He studied her, watching the subtle flicker of scales along her neck, the steady calm in her golden eyes, the quiet strength that radiated from her even in grief. Something in him shifted. He did not know if it was curiosity, responsibility, or a spark of something he had long buried. "I will help," he said at last, his voice firm but cautious. "Not because I care for you. Not because I want anything. But because I cannot ignore someone in danger. And I will do it my way." Lysra's eyes softened, though she said nothing. Her posture relaxed slightly, a small sign of trust. She did not hug him, did not speak of thanks. She simply stood there, letting him understand that her life now depended, in part, on his choices. Kale turned back to the freighter. There were engines to repair, shields to rebuild, and systems to bring back online. 4 hours he worked, and Lysra observed, occasionally offering precise corrections or knowledge of her ship's unique systems. The freighter's glow returned slowly under their combined effort, each repaired panel and humming engine a quiet victory. Outside, the stars rotated, indifferent to their struggles, yet inside the freighter 2 lives were entwining in ways neither had planned. Kale still resisted the pull toward companionship, still reminded himself that he had walls built high to keep grief at bay. But Lysra's quiet strength, her dragon heritage, and her plea for survival were cracks in those walls. For the first time in years, Kale realized that helping someone was not weakness. It was not risk alone. It was a choice, a test of courage and humanity. And as he worked, sweat and metal dust on his hands, he understood that his choice would not only define Lysra's survival but perhaps his own future as well. Lysra watched him silently, golden eyes calm but aware, knowing that the man who had rejected every woman might, at last, be facing a decision that could change everything. The repaired freighter hummed steadily as Kale guided it out of the starport, the stars streaking past like silver ribbons. Lysra sat beside him, quiet but alert, her golden eyes scanning the navigation screens. Despite her calm appearance, Kale could sense the tension coiled in her body. She had survived attacks before, he realized, and her vigilance was a habit, not fear. "We need to reach the system beyond Arkin," Kale said, his hand steady on the controls. "It's far from populated routes and the patrols are light. You'll be safer there." Lysra nodded. "Good. But safe is relative. Danger comes for those who hide, not just those who move openly." Her words carried the weight of experience, and Kale found himself listening more carefully than usual. Hours passed in silence, broken only by the soft hum of the freighter. Kale checked the systems repeatedly, making sure shields were at maximum efficiency and the engines were operating smoothly. Then, without warning, the alarm blared, a red warning flashing across the console. "Pirates," Kale muttered. "No IDs, fast approach. They're trying to cut us off." Lysra's hands flexed, but she did not panic. "They will try to board," she said. "Prepare yourself." Kale activated defensive protocols, rerouted power to shields, and calculated their escape route in seconds. "Hang on," he said, and the freighter surged forward, dodging the first volley of energy blasts. The pirates were skilled, fast, and relentless. Kale maneuvered through the asteroid field, weaving between rocks and debris. He could hear Lysra's calm instructions, her knowledge of trajectories and angles helping him anticipate attacks he might have missed alone. She was no ordinary passenger. Her insights were precise, almost instinctive. "You've been through this before," Kale said, gritting his teeth as a blast narrowly missed the hull. Lysra's golden eyes met his. "Many times. Survive first, then question later. It is how my kind endures." Kale had heard stories of dragons in human folklore, creatures of intelligence and wisdom, but seeing her in action, her calm and sharp mind, he began to understand. She was not just brave, she was strategic, a partner in a fight that could have easily destroyed them. After a tense chase, Kale found a narrow corridor between two asteroids. He calculated a precise turn, angling the freighter just right. The pirates followed too closely, their weapons misfiring against the shielding. With a final burst from the engines, Kale shot them past a gravity well, leaving the attackers scrambling to regain control. Lysra exhaled, a soft sound that was almost like relief. You think like a human, act like a human, but sometimes you surprise me. Kale smirked faintly. And you think like a dragon, move like a dragon, but you trust a human anyway. She did not reply, but her eyes softened, and Kale felt a strange warmth in that acknowledgement. Their journey continued, but danger was not limited to pirates. A nearby planet lay in their path, and its atmosphere was unstable. Kale had calculated that landing there briefly could allow them to refuel using natural resources, but the storm waiting for them was violent. Lightning crackled across violet clouds, winds howled like beasts, and the gravity fluctuated unpredictably. Kale adjusted the freighter's shields and navigation thrusters. "We can do this," he said, though the doubt crept in. The storm could tear the ship apart if he miscalculated even slightly. Lysra moved to the sensor panel, her scales catching the dim light. "Focus on the currents, not the wind. Predict the storm as you would a predator. It has patterns, Kale, like the ones my kind learned to read in the wild." He followed her instructions, tracking the energy flows of the storm. Together, they maneuvered the freighter through the worst of it, dodging lightning strikes and gusts of gravity. Lysra pointed out weak points, guided by instincts Kale could not hope to replicate alone. By the time they landed on the planet's surface, battered but intact, Kale felt a deep respect for her knowledge and courage. They spent the night repairing minor damages and reinforcing shields. Outside, the storm raged, but inside, the freighter was a quiet refuge. Kale worked methodically, checking engines and recalibrating shields, while Lysra offered advice, her voice calm and steady. "You adapt quickly," she said. "Humans survive in ways my kind cannot. Your mind works differently, Kale. You solve problems, not just react to them. That is your strength." Kale paused, wiping sweat from his brow. "And your strength is patience, observation, understanding danger before it even comes." He realized that together they complemented each other. His human ingenuity and her dragon instincts created a team that could survive challenges far greater than either alone. The following day they resumed their journey, leaving the storm behind. Kale piloted the freighter with renewed focus, Lysra beside him, scanning sensors and calculating safe routes. They moved as a team, silent communication passing between them without words. Each obstacle they faced, asteroid belts, rogue drones and minor attacks, was met with quick thinking, improvisation and courage. Kale began to notice small things about her, the way she touched controls lightly, her eyes narrowing in thought, the subtle scale patterns that shimmered when she moved. She carried the memory of her lost mate, but it did not weaken her, it sharpened her resolve. He realized that survival for her was not about hiding from loss but learning from it and moving forward. By the time they reached the outskirts of the safe system Kale had plotted, he felt a quiet satisfaction. The journey had tested both of them, but they had survived not just through skill but through trust and ingenuity. Kale looked at Lysra, golden eyes meeting his, and understood something important. Strength was not only in muscle or firepower. It was in courage, intelligence, and the willingness to act when danger appeared. Lysra's gaze softened as she studied the stars outside. "You are different, Kale. I expected someone skilled, yes, but not someone who adapts so quickly, who learns from mistakes and trusts instincts. You are a human but remarkable." Kale allowed a small smile. "And you, Lysra, are more than legend. You are real and smart and dangerous in the right way." For a moment, they shared a quiet understanding, a connection built on mutual respect, experience, and the trials they had faced together. Kale realized that human ingenuity, when combined with trust and courage, could overcome even the most daunting threats. The galaxy was vast, unpredictable, and dangerous, but he had found someone who could stand beside him, someone whose wisdom and courage matched the challenges of survival. Outside, stars streaked past and the freighter sailed toward safety. Inside, Kale and Lysra worked, planned, and learned from each other. And for the first time in a long while, Kale felt that surviving alone was not enough. There was strength in partnership even when the future was uncertain. The trials among the stars had forged a bond between human and dragon, engineer and widow, survivor and protector. And both of them knew that the galaxy still held dangers far greater than storms or pirates, but together they could face anything. The freighter glided silently through the empty expanse of space, the stars stretching into long trails outside the viewports. Kale adjusted the navigation systems, checking the engines for even the slightest anomaly. He had faced danger before: asteroid fields, storms, pirate attacks, but a deep unease settled in his chest this time. Something was coming, and it was not subtle. Lysra stood beside him, hands resting lightly on the console. "Kale," she said quietly, her golden eyes sharp, "we are being tracked. I sense it. Someone, or something, is waiting for us in the next system." Kale tensed. "How long have you known?" "Long enough to prepare," she replied. Her calm voice hid the tension that Kale could feel radiating from her. "This is not a simple pirate chase. Whoever is coming has power, intelligence, and no fear of killing." Kale's mind raced. He studied the approaching energy signature on the sensors. A rogue AI fleet, reprogrammed warships, had been hunting independent travelers in this sector. They moved with precision, attacking without warning, and adapting faster than any human could anticipate. They had a reputation for annihilating entire freighters before the crew could respond. Lysra touched the console, her scales shimmering slightly in the dim light. "We cannot run. They will catch us. But we can outthink them if we work together. I trust you, Kale." "You must trust me too." Kale hesitated. He had spent years relying only on himself. Trusting anyone fully, especially someone he had only recently met, was dangerous. Yet something in Lysra's calm determination stirred a response he had not expected. He felt that old cautious wall around his heart cracking ever so slightly. "All right," he said finally. "We do this together. No heroics alone." The first attack came swiftly. Rogue ships materialized from the dark, surrounding them in a tight formation. Energy blasts tore past the freighter, shaking the hull. Kale worked quickly, rerouting power to shields and engines while Lysra calculated trajectories, calling out angles and points of weakness in the attacker's formation. "You see that gap near the port side?" she shouted. "If you angle the thrusters just so, we can slip through their sensors and hit their energy matrix." Kale followed her instructions, adjusting the freighter with precise timing. The attack was violent, each misstep risking the freighter's destruction. But Lysra's directions and Kale's ingenuity combined like gears in a machine. He twisted the ship, dodged energy blasts, and fired countermeasures at the right moment. "Good," Lysra shouted as one of the rogue ships faltered, sparks flying from its hull. "Keep moving." Hours passed like minutes. Every decision was critical. Kale worked on instinct and calculation, while Lysra guided him with her uncanny awareness of patterns and energy flows. He marveled at her knowledge, not just of ships but of survival, danger, and strategy. Her dragon instincts were extraordinary, yet she trusted him to act, to take the final risks. During a brief lull, Kale allowed himself to glance at her. She had removed her cloak, revealing more of the scales along her arms and neck. For a moment she seemed almost fragile, her golden eyes reflecting the freighter's interior lights. He realized that she had carried grief, loss, and fear, but she had not let it consume her. She had survived, and now she trusted him enough to fight alongside him, to share her life and danger. "You don't have to do this alone," she said softly, almost shyly. "I know you are used to it. But sometimes strength is letting someone in." Kale's chest tightened. The words struck deeper than he expected. He had rejected every woman before because he feared loss, feared opening himself to pain again. And yet here she was, Lysra, golden-eyed, brave and wounded, offering not affection but trust. And trust was dangerous. The rogue AI fleet resumed its assault, forcing Kale to push aside his thoughts. They had no time for hesitation. Kale executed a risky maneuver, looping the freighter through a series of gravitational anomalies to throw off the attackers. Lysra guided him, adjusting shield frequencies to protect against the energy pulses. Each movement was precise, every second critical. Human skill, ingenuity, and courage worked in harmony with Lysra's instincts and knowledge. Finally they reached a clearing in space. Kale activated a makeshift energy trap he had designed, using the freighter's systems to emit a pulse that overloaded the rogue AI ship's circuits. Sparks erupted, shields failed, and one by one the attackers were neutralized. The freighter floated silently, damaged but intact. Kale exhaled, his body trembling from adrenaline. Lysra placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch light but grounding. "You did it," she said, not with praise but with quiet acknowledgement. "We did it. Together." Kale nodded, his eyes meeting hers. In that moment he felt the weight of his choices. He could turn away as he always had, retreat into solitude and continue surviving alone. Or he could open his heart, step past fear and allow this bond, fragile, new and uncertain, to grow. You're different from anyone I've met, he said slowly. Not just because of your abilities but because you trust me. You could have done this alone, yet you let me help. That is rare. Lysra smiled faintly. And you are human but remarkable. You face danger with your mind, not just your hands. You survive in ways few could. That is why I trust you. Kale felt a warmth in his chest he had not felt in years. He realized that he did not need to offer love, or even companionship in the usual sense. He only needed to be present, to act, and to allow trust to guide him. Then, I will stay, he said quietly. Not because I am ready for anything else. Not because I am brave. But because you need me. And maybe, I need someone too. Lysra's golden eyes softened, and for the first time, Kale saw her vulnerability, not fear, not weakness, but the quiet hope that comes from trusting another. Then we will survive, she said simply. Together. Outside, the stars continued their endless journey, indifferent and cold. But inside the freighter, human ingenuity, dragon wisdom and courage had united to face danger and choice. Kale understood something he had never admitted before. Opening one's heart was not weakness, and survival was richer when shared. For the first time in many years, Kale realized that life, danger and trust could coexist, and that perhaps the galaxy held more than solitude. Held hope. The freighter drifted into the orbit of a quiet, green planet, far from trade routes, far from danger. Kale guided it gently through the atmosphere, the engines humming in harmony with the wind. The clouds shimmered in soft blues and golds, reflecting the distant sun. Lysra watched silently beside him, golden eyes fixed on the horizon. This was their chance for a fresh start, a place where they could finally breathe without fear. Kale landed the freighter on a flat plain near a river that shimmered like liquid silver. Trees dotted the landscape, their leaves moving in a gentle breeze. The air was clean, fresh and unclaimed. Kale stepped out first, boots pressing into soft grass, his chest rising with relief. For the first time in years he felt something lighter than duty or survival. Hope. Lysra followed, her cloak flowing behind her. As she stepped onto the planet's surface, her scales caught the sunlight, glinting like gold and copper. She looked around, serene but alert. This place, it is good, she said softly. Quiet, hidden. Enough to survive and maybe even, to live. Kale glanced at her, noticing how she relaxed in the open air, how the tension in her shoulders eased slightly. She was still cautious, still aware of the possibility of danger, but there was a spark of life in her that had been absent before. He realized that she, like him, had been carrying years of loss and fear, and now both could begin to let go. I'll set up a shelter first, Kale said, gesturing toward a flat area near the river. We need a place to store supplies, repair systems, and live. He added the last word slowly as if testing it, measuring how it sounded on his tongue. Lysra nodded, walking beside him. A home, she said simply. Not a fortress. Not just walls or shields. A home where one can wake without fear and perhaps feel peace. Kale felt a strange warmth in his chest. He had never used the word home for himself. He had thought of ships, starports, missions and survival but never a place to belong. Yet now, with Lysra beside him, it seemed possible. They worked together, turning the plane into a small sanctuary. Kale used his engineering skills to stabilize the freighter's damaged systems, creating a living space inside with heat, power and storage. Lysra moved gracefully among the equipment, helping with modifications, her dragon instincts guiding the efficiency of the work. She suggested using natural energy sources, like the river's current and solar panels fashioned from metal sheets. Kale marveled at her resourcefulness. Humans were clever, yes, but Lysra's wisdom from her dragon lineage added an edge he had never encountered. By evening, a small shelter had taken shape, a combination of technology and natural surroundings. A soft glow from repurposed freighter panels lit the interior. Kale had even added a small observation deck, where they could watch the stars and feel connected to the universe outside. Lysra examined it, her golden eyes reflecting the warm light. It is adequate, she said with a faint smile. Safe, practical, and human. Kale allowed himself a rare chuckle. Human ingenuity. But it wouldn't work without your input. You have made it better than I could alone. They stood together, looking out at the river and the trees, the freighter behind them, and the stars beginning to appear in the twilight sky. A gentle silence passed, comfortable and calm. Lysra turned to him, her voice quiet, almost hesitant. Kale, There is something I want to ask. Not for survival. Not for need. But for belonging. I have asked for a home. I wonder, would you allow me to stay, not just in the freighter or near it, but here, with you? Cale's chest tightened. He had faced danger, loss, and solitude, yet this question pierced him deeper than any attack ever could. He had spent years refusing women, refusing connection, refusing love. And now this dragon widow, strong, wise, and brave, was asking for something more than shelter. She was asking for trust, for acceptance, for partnership. He looked around at the world they had claimed together, at the home they had built with their own hands. He looked at her, golden eyes shining with courage and hope, and realized that he did not need to answer with words of romance or devotion. He only needed to act in the way he knew best, by creating a life together, by sharing survival, and by offering a place to belong. Then stay, he said simply. Stay here. Stay with me. Not because I have to, not because I am ready for anything else, but because this feels right. This is your home and mine too. Lysera's eyes softened, and for the first time she allowed herself a small, genuine smile. Thank you, Cale. That is more than I could ask for. The sun set, casting golden light across the plain. They worked side by side to complete small repairs, tend to supplies, and reinforce the freighter as a living space. The sounds of tools, water from the river, and distant wildlife filled the air. Cale realized that life could be more than survival. It could be comfort, partnership, and a quiet joy he had not known in years. As night fell, they sat on the observation deck, looking out at the stars. Lysera rested her scaled hands lightly on the console, and Cale beside her, quiet but content. The galaxy stretched endlessly around them, full of danger, wonder, and mystery. Yet in this small corner, they had carved a place for themselves, a home beyond the stars. Cale reflected on everything they had endured: pirates, storms, loss, and fear. Humanity's ingenuity had guided them through challenges, human resilience had saved them when logic alone was not enough, and compassion had allowed him to open his heart in a way he had long resisted. Lysera's dragon wisdom and courage had taught him patience, strategy, and trust. Together they had survived, adapted, and created something more than shelter. They had created a home. Lysera looked at him, her eyes reflecting the starry sky. Do you think we can truly be safe here? Cale nodded, a quiet confidence in his voice. We will be. Not because the galaxy is safe, but because we know how to survive, together. And maybe, this is the start of something more. A life we choose, not just endure. The stars above twinkled silently, witnesses to their small victory, to the life they had forged from chaos and loss. Cale placed a hand near Lysera's shoulder, not in romance yet, but in acknowledgement, partnership, and trust. It was a connection built from trials, courage, and survival, the true meaning of home. For the first time in years, Cale felt at peace. He had rejected every woman before, yes, but he had not rejected the possibility of belonging, of partnership, of hope. And here, on a quiet planet under distant stars, he had found it with Lysera, the dragon widow who had asked a simple question and changed everything. Home or a wife? He did not answer in words. He answered with action. Together they would live, survive, and create a life beyond the stars. And in that small sanctuary, human ingenuity, compassion, and resilience shone brighter than any star in the galaxy.